Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to go back in time, explore the rise of Nazism and Hitler's terrifying control over Germany. You've shared some excerpts with us from the 9th grade history textbook, India and the Contemporary World, specifically Chapter 3, Nazism and the Rise of Hitler.
Right.
And I'm really curious to see how a nation defeated in World War I could fall prey to such an extreme ideology.
It's a question that continues to fascinate and trouble historians to this day. The seeds of this dark chapter were really sown in the aftermath of World War I. To truly understand how Hitler was able to seize power, we need to start with Germany's devastating defeat in the Treaty of Versailles.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to officially end the war, but it really felt like the victors were punishing Germany, right?
Absolutely. Germany lost significant territory, was forced to disarm, and had to accept blame for the war. They were also saddled with massive reparations payments, which just crippled their economy. Imagine the collective humiliation and resentment that brewed within German society at that time.
Yeah, I can see how that would create fertile ground for extremist ideologies.
Yeah.
People are probably searching for someone to blame for a way to restore their national pride.
Exactly. And this widespread discontent with the treaty and the struggling Weimar Republic, Germany's new democratic government, is key to understanding the rise of figures like Hitler. The Weimar Republic, despite its progressive ideals, was facing numerous challenges: political instability, a fractured society, and a severe economic crisis.
Didn't they also have to deal with hyperinflation in the early 1920s?
Yes. In 1923, Germany experienced hyperinflation so extreme that their currency became practically worthless. People saw their life savings evaporate overnight. And this economic turmoil further eroded public trust in the Weimar Republic and fueled a longing for a strong leader who could restore order.
So the stage was set for a charismatic leader to exploit this chaos, and that's where Hitler and the Nazi Party entered the picture.
Precisely. Initially a fringe group known as the German Workers' Party, it was transformed by Hitler into a vehicle for his own, twisted ideology. He drew on the deep-seated anger and resentment within German society, offering scapegoats and promises of national revival.
His book Mein Kampf, which he wrote while in prison after the failed beer hall putsch in 1923, basically became the Nazi blueprint, didn't it?
Yes. Mein Kampf, meaning my struggle, laid out his warped worldview. It included extreme nationalism, a belief in the superiority of the Aryan race, and a virulent hatred of Jews, whom he blamed for Germany's problems.
It's disturbing to think that such hateful ideas could gain traction. How did the Nazis manage to appeal to a wider audience? Were people really buying into these extreme views?
It wasn't simply about agreeing with every aspect of Nazi ideology. It was about exploiting a climate of fear, desperation, and a yearning for stability and national pride. The Nazis were masters of propaganda, using rallies, speeches, and imagery to create a powerful and seductive narrative. They appealed to people's emotions, promising a return to greatness and blaming outsiders for their problems.
It sounds like they were really tapping into that collective sense of humiliation that Germany felt after World War I.
Yes, and they skillfully channeled that resentment towards specific targets, particularly Jews, who became scapegoats for all of Germany's ills. They also offered simple solutions to complex problems. They promised jobs, economic revival, and a restoration of German power on the world stage.
So they were playing on both people's fears and their aspirations. But how did they actually gain political power? Was there a specific event that propelled them to the forefront?
Well, the year 1933 was a turning point. Amidst ongoing political and economic turmoil, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. It's a fascinating and troubling example of how a democratic system can be exploited from within. While the Nazi Party hadn't won a majority in the elections, they were able to form a coalition government. Hitler used this position to swiftly consolidate his power.
So it wasn't an overnight takeover, but a strategic maneuver that allowed him to gradually seize control.
Exactly. Once in power, Hitler moved quickly to eliminate any opposition. He used intimidation, violence, and legal machinations to establish a totalitarian state. He banned other political parties, suppressed dissent, and created a cult of personality around himself as the Führer, or supreme leader.
That's terrifying. In just a few short years, Germany transformed from a fragile democracy into a dictatorship ruled by fear. It makes you wonder how people could have stood by and allowed this to happen.
That's a question historians continue to grapple with. The rise of Nazi Germany is a chilling reminder of how easily democracy can be eroded and how dangerous ideologies can exploit social and economic anxieties to gain power.
It's definitely a stark warning from history.
Yeah.
But we've only scratched the surface of this complex story. What happened next? How did life in Germany change under Nazi rule? I guess we'll have to dive deeper into that in the next part. We left off with Hitler consolidating his power in 1933, effectively transforming Germany into a dictatorship. It's hard to fathom what life must have been like under Nazi rule, you know? Did people just accept this new reality? Was there any resistance?
Well, it was a society gripped by fear. Hitler established a vast network of surveillance and control, silencing any opposition. He had the Gestapo, the secret police. They instilled terror, monitoring conversations, censoring the press, and ruthlessly crushing any dissent.
So it wasn't just about controlling information. It was about controlling people's thoughts and actions.
Absolutely. They wanted to create a society where people wouldn't even dare to think differently, let alone speak out. And for those who did resist, well, the consequences were dire. Concentration camps, initially set up for political prisoners, became instruments of terror, holding anyone deemed a threat to the regime.
That's just chilling. It's like something out of a dystopian novel. But how did they manage to control the narrative so effectively? I know we touched on propaganda earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to learn more about how they used it to shape public opinion.
Well, propaganda was the lifeblood of the Nazi regime. They understood the power of manipulating emotions, particularly fear and resentment. Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda, was a master at crafting a narrative that demonized enemies, glorified the Nazi party, and instilled a sense of national unity, even if it was based on, a foundation of hate and exclusion.
They weren't just putting out posters and making speeches, were they?
No. They controlled all forms of media.
Yeah.
Radio, newspapers, film, even education. School textbooks were rewritten to promote Nazi ideology. Children were enrolled in youth organizations like the Hitler Youth, and rallies were staged with, impressive spectacle and pageantry to create a sense of awe and excitement.
Wow.
They even used architecture and art to convey a sense of power and grandeur, aligning with their vision of a new German empire.
It sounds like they were trying to create a whole new reality.
In many ways they did. They wanted to reshape not just the political landscape, but the very fabric of German society, molding it into their vision of a racially pure and obedient nation. They even co-opted traditional symbols and holidays, twisting them to serve their own purposes. It was a systematic and insidious form of brainwashing.
It's incredible how they were able to manipulate so many aspects of daily life. But alongside this reign of terror and propaganda, they were also making changes to the economy, right? Didn't they implement some policies that actually improved the lives of many Germans?
That's an important point. While their methods were abhorrent, the Nazis did achieve some economic successes, at least in the short term. They implemented large-scale public works programs, invested heavily in rearmament, and imposed strict controls on wages and prices.
Okay.
These policies led to a reduction in unemployment and a sense of economic stability.